Dr. Michael Galvin, a longtime equine veterinarian at Belmont Park in New York, has been issued a notice of violation by the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority for allegedly failing to submit over 3,900 treatment records. I'm quoting from the Pollock Report story here. The penalties for this violation include a fine of up to $50,000 and potentially a lifetime ban from the sport. I'm mostly going to toss it to Jon on this one because he's a little more in the know in terms of the backstretch rumblings about guys like this. But I do think this is like kind of usually an underreported factor in people trying to take an edge in the sport. We always hear about the trainers, and the trainers get like the big headlines when they get popped. A lot of the vets that these guys use are really the brains, such as they are, behind the operation and trying to cheat. And I'm not suggesting that Michael Galvin is definitely a cheating vet, but 3,900 plus failures to report veterinary records does not reflect well on him. If that's true, he was sent the notice of violation on August 23rd, 2024. He failed to report approximately 3,951 treatments administered to 497 horses between January 1st, 2023 and March 7th, 2024. So if indeed he is a dirty vet and he's not doing the right things by the horses, this is a big step for HISA. But Jon, you know a little bit more about this than I do. What's your impression?
Well, it's good that HISA's net is trying to capture not only trainers who are taking an edge and doing things that are illegal and immoral, but now they're also broadening their horizons to veterinarians and owners as well. But in this case, with a veterinarian who failed to report that many different treatments over almost 500 horses, Joe. So the question is, did he just not, issue or identify, report any of the horses that he's been working on over the years, or since HISA's, implemented this protocol? Or is it that he purposely, eschew didn't include these 500 horses that were being looked upon or that he was working on? But the thing that's interesting the most in the Pollock Report not only talks about, the notice of violation and the fact that Galvin now only has until the 30th, which is Monday, I believe, to get back to them, with any kind of a response. Or is it Friday? That's right.
Friday.
Today's, yep. Yeah, exactly. So Friday. So he only has that small window of time. But it talks about also who else Galvin's main clients are. And again, innocent, not innocent, anywhere in between in the spectrum, doesn't matter. But it wasn't a surprise that this happened. To me, it was a surprise that it happened so quickly, and that according to the rules, they're only giving Galvin a week to basically respond to this. So there must be more in the background that we don't know about, because if you're threatening to take somebody to a lifetime ban, then my guess is they probably have the goods on them.
Yeah, well, and Jon, correct me if I'm wrong, but did we even have this standard of reporting before HISA came around?
I don't remember. What I used to have to do is go to Thoroughbred Rulings, which is an unofficial website that basically occasionally takes some information from trainers and owners and jockeys that have fines or violations. And it was like an archaic website that occasionally would update every now and then. But that's where I would go when I would look to see whether or not people in the industry had committed any kind of problems or any issues, and those were like finable offenses. So it was anywhere from somebody didn't hand the paperwork on time to they didn't register a groom, licensed groom as one of their own, all the way to any kind of medical or medication violations. But no, this is part of the overall plan of HISA and HIWU, is to not only, implement the rules and then investigate, people who potentially are violating the rules, but also post publicly what's going on. And I think that's another layer of transparency that people have been screaming for in the industry, is just get an idea of what's going on. Again, Joe, you and I both agree, and we're both saying that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. All we're saying is that this wasn't a surprise that this was a name that came up.
Yeah. No, and this follows Vince Baker, if you remember, being put on probation last year, like almost a year ago to the day, being put on 4 years of probation by the California Veterinary Medical Board for allegedly having having several causes of discipline, including negligence, unprofessional conduct, dispensing, quote, dangerous drugs without medical necessity, failure to establish a veterinarian client-patient relationship, record-keeping violations, and failure to provide necessary drug consultation. So I do think, I mean, that wasn't necessarily HISA, that was California's regulatory agencies that went after Vince Baker. But yeah, I think that it's been underreported over time how much the vets affect whether or not the horses are racing in a clean sport. So we'll stay tuned and watch this space for further updates on that. So it's very, very interesting. Moving back to the racetrack just for a moment, I wanted to mention that for the first time, Next is being considered for a Breeders' Cup race. Now, a lot of people want him to run in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, which is this coming closing Saturday at Saratoga. Mile and a quarter, you think it would be up his alley. Who really is pointing there to be scared of? But no, he's going to run the Greenwood Cup, probably against like 2 or 3 horses in September and early September or late September on the Parks Pennsylvania Derby card. But Doug Cowens did mention that the Classic and the Breeders' Cup Turf are potential options for him after that. And I would say, yes, please. Either of those would be great. We want to see this horse tested. As fabulous as he is, it just gets boring watching him beat up on the same 3 or 4 tomato cans that are left in the marathon division at this point. And those races are just becoming completely unwatchable. We want to see him tested. It's interesting that he's considering the turf because if you remember, when he was claimed, he was initially a turf horse. And then he went back to the dirt, and then they found out he was an absolute monster going along on the dirt, so they never went back to the grass. He thinks that the 1.5 miles of the turf might suit him better than the 1.5 miles of the Classic. I don't care which one. Just put him in a race where someone can eyeball him. I got to see what he can do when he's at his absolute best, because what he's done already is phenomenal. But I think there's something left in the tank, and I want to see it. So we're excited for that. Hopefully that comes to fruition. One other quick story to mention and one thing to look forward to. Kentucky Downs opens this week. Starts this Thursday, August 29th. It's a 6-day meet. They're big. I mean, every day just has tons of purse money. Their big day is this Saturday with the Nashville Derby, and West Point is lucky enough to have a 1-2 punch in that race for $3.1 million. Cugino and Carson's Run. Carson's Run is a little bit of a surprise entry because he just ran in the Saratoga Derby a couple of weeks ago, but he's doing so well that the Clements are like, we got to take this shot. You don't get to run in big money races like this outside of the Breeders' Cup, especially with grass horses. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Cugino drew outside, which is going to be a little bit tricky, but I'm excited to see him as well. We've got Don't Look Back at All in the ladies' turf sprint. What's so great is like that's a $1.5 million race for Kentucky breds. She's a PA bred. She's still running for $900,000. So these purses in these races are just absurd. If you look at the opening day card, I see a bunch of DJ stable horses in there for these $250,000 allowance. These $170,000 made in special weight races. And these are not fields lined with killers, my guy. Like, I know I don't mean to blow up your spot here, but for it just shows like how shrewd you and DJ Stable are to be taking advantage of these races, because I look at these $170,000 maiden races and it's like a bunch of horses with like 50 and 60 buyers. It's unbelievable that more people aren't taking advantage. John, I mean, I know the secret's out, my guy. Don't just tell me a little bit about your approach to Kentucky Downs.
Well, I think like anything else, you want to have horses that Kentucky Downs is a very unique meet. Very unique meet, not only in the dollars that are being offered, but also the vantage points. And probably most importantly, Joe, is the track itself replicates like the European tracks. So you have to have a very athletic horse to run on these undulating, tight turned, goofy, non-oval, kind of liver-shaped racetracks. So you can't send horses over there that normally you'd say, well, distance horses, they're usually the most sturdiest and the ones that show the most stamina. They're bigger. You don't want that. You don't want that at Kentucky Downs because they're going to get literally bogged down in that turf course. So we've taken some of our horses that are a little bit lighter, a little bit more European-esque, and run them. We have Taco Cat Backwards, which is everybody's favorite filly. Make It to Cheyenne and Heat in the Keeneland sales allowance race on opening day. And then we have a couple more that are coming up, throughout the week, Joe. But it's not Kentucky Downs isn't a secret, but what is a secret is the kind of horse that you need to run there. And I think that your horses are actually going to fare very well. I haven't seen the entries yet, but they're very athletic type horses, and that's what you need there. You don't go to Kentucky Downs as a person if you expect to see great racing, because you can't. There's no good vantage point there. There's no stands. There's no permanent structures really, for all intents and purposes. The race is kind of like a rumor. It's kind of like, who's in front? Well, you can't really tell by the camera angle, and sometimes when it's windy, the cameras are moving like literally like degrees at apart, so you can't really even see who's doing what. But they pay really well, and the races are really for the money, they're easy to pick off.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm surprised that like Chad Brown and like some of these other major trainers have not rated Kentucky Downs more than they already have. It's usually Mike Maker's playground.
Right.
He's the guy that's been kind of the king over there over the years. So really looking forward to that meet. And yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say as a handicapper, the one angle, and it's an interesting point you make about the lighter framed horses doing a little better on that turf course. The other thing is I think you need tactical speed.
Yes.
I don't see a ton of deep closers winning from there because that last bit of the stretch is an incline.
Right.
So it's a hard deal to be coming from that far back and then have to run uphill for like the last 1/8 or 16th of a mile. I think it typically tends to favor horses who are at least within couple lengths of the front at the 8th pole or the 3/16th pole.
Right, exactly. And actually, Joe, since you mentioned that, I'm proud to report that fan favorite and show favorite Web Slinger is going to, who comes from way out of it, is going to be running in one of the $500,000 handicaps on what is it on the 1st of September.
Hey, if anybody can do it, Webby can.
Webby can.